In a surprising turn, Canada has chosen to cancel a $19 billion deal with Lockheed Martin to acquire 88 F-35 fighter jets, a decision that is part of a broader shift in its defense and trade relations. This represents a major shift in their defense strategies, pulling away from traditional reliance on the United States and looking toward Europe for military and economic partnership. This decision is particularly significant considering the historical context of North America's defense agreements, most notably Canada's close ties with the U.S. Since January 2023, Canada signed a $19 billion deal with Lockheed Martin to acquire 88 F-35 fighter jets, a move that many saw as a commitment to American defense systems. Portugal, too, has followed a similar path, withdrawing from the F-35 program and signaling a break from U.S. influence. These decisions come against the backdrop of a changing global defense environment and a growing desire among countries to gain more control over their own defense policies, especially in light of the political uncertainties of the Trump administration, strict tariff policies, and shifting global alliances. Today we explore what this means for Canada, Portugal, the United States, and the growing influence of the European Union in military and economic matters. The key factor driving this decision lies in the trade and political tensions between Canada and the U.S. under the leadership of Donald Trump. Trump's protectionist trade policies and his imposition of severe tariffs on Canadian goods created a rift in what was once a close economic and military relationship between the two countries. The protectionist stance taken by the Trump administration made it clear to Canada that reliance on U.S. defense systems was no longer a secure or sustainable option. The political instability associated with Trump's foreign policies, especially his unpredictable stance on trade, defense agreements, and international diplomacy, pushed Canada to reconsider its reliance on the United States for national security. Canada's choice to walk away from the F-35 deal reflects its desire for more independence in making military decisions, reducing its dependence on a single partner, especially one that is prone to abrupt policy changes. This move is also part of a broader trend among U.S. allies seeking alternative defense options that do not involve being overly reliant on the U.S. This development underscores the increasing realization among nations like Canada and Portugal that they need to pursue more flexible, autonomous defense solutions in order to better safeguard their national security. Canada's decision to cancel the F-35 deal mirrors the action taken by Portugal, which also withdrew from the F-35 program around the same time. While Portugal's military budget may not be as substantial as Canada's, its decision to cancel the F-35 acquisition is equally telling. According to Portugal's Defense Minister, Nuno Maio, the instability in U.S. foreign policy under Trump made it impossible for Portugal to continue with its planned purchase of these fighter jets. Just like Canada, Portugal is seeking greater autonomy in its defense strategy. The decision to abandon the F-35 program comes after years of frustration with the unpredictability of U.S. defense and trade policies. Portugal is now looking for replacement fighter jets and aiming to build a more flexible and independent defense force, one that is less reliant on traditional military partners, particularly the U.S. For these countries, it's no longer just about the cost or technical specifications of the F-35 jets. It's about the broader political and strategic implications of maintaining tight military ties with the U.S. The uncertainty surrounding U.S. policies, especially in terms of defense and trade, has prompted nations like Canada and Portugal to explore new alternatives, both in terms of defense technologies and their international alliances. While the shift away from the U.S. for defense systems is a major part of Canada's evolving strategy, it's also important to highlight how Canada is strengthening its domestic defense capabilities. By focusing on building its own defense technologies, Canada is ensuring that it has greater control over its national security without having to rely heavily on external suppliers. Canada's defense industry is already a major contributor to its economy. The sector generates over 10 billion Canadian dollars annually and supports more than 64,000 jobs across the country. Companies such as General Dynamics Land Systems in Ontario and CAE Inc. in Montreal are vital players in supplying military products to Canada's armed forces. The decision to increase domestic defense production and technology development is a strategic move to reduce reliance on international partners while boosting the local economy. One of the most promising alternatives to the F-35 in Canada's future defense strategy is the JAS-39 Gripen fighter jet, manufactured by Saab in Sweden. Saab has proposed building these jets in Canada, which would not only provide Canada with the jets it needs, but also contribute to the development of its aerospace and defense industries. This could create jobs and help transfer critical technology to Canada's defense sector, aligning with the country's goal of independence and self-reliance in national security. As Canada continues to diversify its defense supply chains and work with more independent defense manufacturers, it signals that the country is no longer willing to be tethered to the U.S. for its security needs. With increasing defense spending in Europe and the growing importance of NATO collaboration, Canada is also doubling down on its role within NATO, strengthening military alliances beyond its southern neighbor. The global trend of increased defense spending is not exclusive to Canada and Portugal. It's also happening across Europe. The European Union, EU, is ramping up its defense budget, with spending expected to reach approximately €326 billion by 2024, an increase of more than 30% from 2021. European countries are moving toward greater military autonomy, looking to reduce their dependence on U.S. military systems while developing indigenous defense technologies. One of the driving forces behind this shift is Europe's desire to reduce its reliance on U.S. military systems and take on more responsibility for its own defense. As the EU's defense industry grows, it is fostering greater cooperation among European nations to develop advanced military systems and technologies. The EU's Rearm Europe initiative, which aims to raise €800 billion for defense investments, is a clear indication that Europe is serious about achieving strategic autonomy. For Canada, this shift presents a unique opportunity. As European nations look to build self-sufficiency in defense, they are also increasingly open to working with non-EU countries that share their commitment to autonomy and defense collaboration. Canada is strengthening its military partnerships with European countries, especially in NATO operations, and has positioned itself as a vital contributor to European security. The growing military cooperation between Canada and European countries is helping to create a more independent and flexible defense force in both regions. As Canada seeks greater autonomy and shifts its focus toward Europe, it's important to understand that this trend is not confined to Canada alone. Across Europe, countries are also beginning to rethink their dependence on the United States, especially under the leadership of Donald Trump. A recent discussion at the Ricina Dialogue 2025 revealed that Hungary's foreign minister, in a bold statement, emphasized that Hungary's policies have long been aligned with Trump's America First approach, even before Trump became president. This admission is significant because it illustrates the broader European trend of embracing independence in foreign policy, a stance that aligns more closely with national interests rather than aligning strictly with U.S. directives. Countries such as Hungary are finding that aligning too closely with the U.S. under Trump's protectionist and unpredictable policies may not serve their long-term strategic goals. This growing sentiment of European independence echoes through the corridors of other nations, including those in the Indo-Pacific region who are questioning whether they can continue to rely on the U.S. for defense and security cooperation. Top naval officials from the Indo-Pacific recently voiced concerns about the U.S. IS' unpredictable leadership and its inconsistent foreign policies under Trump, questioning if America can be a reliable partner for long-term security. Nations in the Indo-Pacific are starting to look to alternative defense partners, with some even exploring closer cooperation with European powers and other regional alliances to fill the void left by the shifting stance of the U.S. In this context, the growing divide between the U.S. and its traditional allies, such as Canada and European countries, represents an opportunity for Europe to step up as a more dependable global partner. Marcos Perestrello, a NATO official, recently remarked that Trump's challenge presents Europe with the opportunity to strengthen its own partnerships and promote a vision of security and defense that doesn't rely solely on the U.S. NATO, historically dependent on American leadership, is now in the process of reshaping its strategies, looking at new ways to foster global security alliances. The growing defense budgets within the European Union and the investment into autonomous defense technologies are concrete steps in that direction. As Canada embraces a deeper partnership with Europe, Europe's strategic shift signals that nations around the world may not need to solely rely on the U.S. for defense, and this evolving relationship is setting the stage for a new global defense architecture. The dynamics of U.S. influence in global security, especially under Trump, have created an opening for countries to find more stable and reliable alternatives to safeguard their security. The shift in Canada's defense and trade strategies marks a new era in its relationship with the U.S. and Europe. As Canada seeks greater autonomy in defense, it is aligning itself with European countries that share similar goals of reducing reliance on U.S. military systems. The decision to cancel the F-35 deal and pursue alternatives like the Gripen fighter jet is just the beginning of a broader shift towards self-reliance and flexibility in global military and trade matters. The U.S.-Canada trade war is a clear indication that Canada is no longer content with passive dependence on the U.S. For the first time in history, Canada is taking a stand, demonstrating that it will no longer tolerate unilateral trade policies from the U.S. as it continues to strengthen its ties with Europe. Canada's new geopolitical direction is a reflection of a changing world order, one where nations are increasingly looking to protect their sovereignty and develop their own solutions to security and trade challenges. Thank you for watching this in-depth analysis. Please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button to stay updated on future developments in this dynamic global story.
Now, let's turn to Canada's defense strategy, a major area of change under Carney's government. The government has announced its reassessment of the $19 billion deal to purchase 88 F-35 fighter jets from the U.S.-based Lockheed Martin. The purchase was part of Canada's effort to modernize its military capabilities, especially with regard to air defense. The decision to reconsider the deal isn't merely about military hardware. It's a sign of deepening tensions between Canada and the U.S. To understand the significance of this, we need to look at the broader context. Canada has already committed funds for the first 16 F-35s, due for delivery next year. But now, officials are questioning whether all 88 jets need to be F-35s, and if not, they are considering alternatives. This decision comes on the heels of a major development from Portugal, which recently abandoned its own F-35 acquisition plans due to concerns over Trump's unpredictable foreign policies. Portugal's decision sparked concerns among NATO allies, especially since Trump's policies have shown signs of deprioritizing NATO security. For Canada, which is part of NATO, this poses a serious dilemma about its own defense independence and the reliability of the U.S. as a military partner. So, what are the alternatives? Enter Europe. In what could be seen as a historic pivot, Canada is now actively considering European fighter jets as replacements for the F-35s. The Saab Gripen, a Swedish-built multi-role fighter, is emerging as a leading contender. This aircraft is cost-effective, versatile, and suited to Canada's Arctic environment, making it an attractive alternative. Here's why this matters to everyday Canadians. The decision to explore European options represents a shift towards self-reliance in defense and closer ties with European nations. For Canadians, this could lead to new economic opportunities. The Saab Gripen, for instance, could be manufactured in Canada, creating high-tech jobs and boosting local economies. In addition to aircraft, Canada's move towards European defense partnerships could result in stronger military collaborations, which would further protect the country from external threats. The benefits aren't just abstract. They could mean improved national security, a stronger defense industry, and better jobs for the workforce. Canada's decision to look beyond the U.S. comes at a time when European nations are dramatically increasing their defense spending. Between 2021 and 2024, European Union member states have ramped up their military budgets by over 30%, reaching approximately 326 billion euro in 2024. This is significant, and it signals that Europe is serious about strategic autonomy. For ordinary citizens in both Canada and Europe, this could mean a reduced dependence on the U.S. for military hardware and potentially more stable regional defense. The European Union's Rearm Europe initiative, launched in March 2025, aims to mobilize 800 billion euro to strengthen the continent's defense capabilities. The goal is to achieve greater self-sufficiency, reducing reliance on U.S. military technologies and supporting domestic defense industries. This includes building more military infrastructure and investing in new defense technologies. For Canadians, the growing strength of the European defense sector could present new opportunities for collaboration. Whether it's through joint military exercises, procurement, or even technology exchange, Canada could become a more active participant